Something big just landed out of the White House, and it connects Iran, the Middle East, and a security scare. The president says negotiations are moving, but critics inside his own party are sounding the alarm. And before we even get to the deal, there was a disturbing incident near the White House gates. According to security officials, an armed suspect opened fire near a major Washington intersection. Agents returned fire. The suspect was later pronounced dead, and one bystander was reportedly struck. Now stop right there, because that is not normal political noise. That is a serious security moment. Officials said the president remained inside the White House, and protected operations were not impacted. But this raises a major question about how someone with a violent history gets that close at all. The president praised federal agents and law enforcement for what he called swift professional action. And that praise came as his team was already working another high-stakes story: Iran. The administration has been in talks with major Middle Eastern leaders, trying to shape the next step. The message coming from the White House is simple: no rush deal, no nuclear weapon, no easy pass. But not everyone on the conservative side is comfortable with what they are hearing right now. Several Republican voices warned that a weak ceasefire or bad deal could erase recent gains. Listen, that is not some random complaint from the sidelines. That is pressure from inside the tent. One senior armed services Republican warned that trusting Iran to act in good faith could be disastrous. Another senior Republican senator questioned whether the region can truly be protected from Iran's threats. And that matters because the Strait of Hormuz is not just a regional issue. It is a global pressure point. Another conservative senator said he was deeply concerned about a deal that leaves the regime intact. So the divide is not about whether Iran should get a weapon. Everyone says no. The fight is over trust. The president's defenders argue this is exactly why the White House is moving carefully, not blindly. The top foreign policy official pushed back, saying no one has been tougher on Iran's nuclear ambitions. His point was that past leaders talked about stopping a nuclear weapon, but this administration acted. And that is the key argument from the White House side: strength first, diplomacy second. The administration says any paper agreement still has to be implemented, verified, and enforced. That distinction matters because a deal on paper means nothing if the regime ignores it the next morning. Then came a statement from Iran's president claiming his government is not seeking nuclear weapons. Now, a lot of Americans hear that and immediately say, why should anyone believe them? That skepticism is not irrational. It comes from years of threats, proxy conflict, and broken confidence. The president answered critics with a new statement comparing this approach to the old nuclear agreement. He argued the previous deal was one of the worst agreements the country ever accepted. His new claim is that the current talks are moving in the opposite direction, with pressure still in place. That phrase matters: pressure still in place, because without leverage, diplomacy becomes a wish list. The president said he told his representatives not to rush because time is on America's side. That is designed to calm supporters who fear the White House is moving too fast toward compromise. He also said the blockade remains until an agreement is reached, certified, and signed. So this is not being framed as surrender. It is being framed as pressure diplomacy. But critics are asking a fair question. What happens if Iran signs something and then plays games? That is where enforcement becomes everything. Not speeches, not photo ops, enforcement. The White House statement also thanked Middle Eastern partners for support and cooperation so far. The bigger goal appears to be regional alignment, not just another temporary pause in the conflict. The statement even suggested that Iran could someday join a broader regional peace framework. Now, that line is going to make a lot of people sit up straight because it is a huge leap. The idea is simple in theory. Isolate the nuclear threat, preserve pressure, and pull the region toward stability. But theory is not reality. Reality is whether a hostile regime actually changes behavior under pressure. Major media outlets are already framing this as a test of the president's deal-making promise. Conservative critics are framing it differently. They want to know whether strength is becoming restraint. And that is a serious debate, because America First does not mean endless war, but it also does not mean weakness. The administration's argument is that power gives diplomacy teeth, and that pressure creates options. The critics' argument is that Iran's leadership has used time, talks, and delay before. Both arguments matter because this is not just foreign policy. It is a test of trust and leverage. Watch the wording here. The White House is not saying mission accomplished. It is saying get it right. That gives the administration room to negotiate, but it also gives supporters room to demand proof. The key phrase is certified and signed. That implies process, paperwork, and a demand for confirmation. But the American people are not asking for clever language. They are asking for real security. If this works, the president can say strength forced diplomacy without handing Iran a victory. If it fails, critics will say Washington ignored every warning sign because it wanted a headline. That is why the reaction is so intense. This is not a small policy memo. This is a credibility test. The president's supporters trust his deal-making instincts, especially when he keeps pressure on the table. But even supporters are watching the details, because Iran's nuclear threat is not a symbolic issue. There is also the Israeli angle, where the prime minister signaled that Iran must never get a nuclear weapon. That matters because regional allies are not just watching the statement, they are watching the enforcement. A public message can look united on the surface, but behind the scenes, everyone is measuring risk. The Gulf states care about shipping lanes, oil infrastructure, regional security, and avoiding a wider war. The White House says conversations included several major Middle Eastern partners, not just one government. That gives the president a stronger hand if those countries stay aligned and keep pressure coordinated. But if that alignment cracks, Iran can exploit division faster than Washington can explain it. That is why the critics are not only reacting emotionally, they are reacting to strategic uncertainty. One former top diplomat even warned the reported framework sounded too much like an old playbook. And the White House response was not subtle. They basically said, outsiders are not read into the process. That tells you the administration is irritated by criticism from former officials and current allies alike. But irritation does not answer the central question. What exactly will Iran be required to do? Will there be inspections, timelines, penalties, snapback pressure, and clear consequences for violations? Because without consequences, the deal becomes a press release. And America cannot afford that. My take is this.
Diplomacy is only patriotic when it protects Americans and keeps enemies from gaining power.
Wanting a deal is not weakness, but accepting a bad deal because everyone wants calm would be weakness. The president is betting that pressure and negotiation can move together. Now he has to prove it. The next few days matter because every side will try to define the deal before details are locked. The media class will look for chaos, critics will look for concessions, and supporters will look for strength. But the real measure is simpler. Does this make America and its allies safer or not? That is the test every American should apply, not whether the headline sounds impressive for one afternoon. The administration says the blockade stays active until the deal is reached, certified, and signed. That is the part supporters should hold them to, because leverage only matters if you actually use it. If Iran follows through, America gains stability without pretending the threat never existed. If Iran plays games, the White House has to respond fast, clearly, and with unmistakable force. So I want to hear from you. Is this smart pressure diplomacy, or are critics right to be worried? Do you trust the president to get this right, or do you think Iran will use talks to buy time? Drop your answer below, because this story is moving fast, and the details could change everything. Subscribe to Uncle Sam Briefing for sharp, patriotic breakdowns when Washington stories start moving. Stay with us, stay alert, and as always, may God bless America and all who defend her.